Hi, I'm Cynthia for Artbeads.com, and Cheri here is gonna show us how to put patina on filigree pieces. This is such a cool project, and I cannot wait to see how she does it.
This was so much fun. I had not used the patinas before. This was all new to me, and so it was just an experiment. And there were so many colors to choose from.
Yes.
I wasn't sure where to start, but I had a few pieces to play with. And first thing I want to say is wear gloves.
Right.
It's messy, and it'll stain your fingers, and you don't necessarily want those in your skin. So gloves is a good thing. And I have plastic down for my work surface. You don't want to get this. It's like working with paint, so you want to protect your work surface. And I have just a couple real inexpensive paintbrushes that I used. And then have some paper towels on hand. And through my experimenting, I worked with dry paper towels and wet ones. And I liked using the wet paper towel. I'll kind of share why in a minute. So I have that ready as well.
Great.
I want to show you a little bit of what I played with. This is a gorgeous rose gold. And so I thought, ooh, what would that look like? And so this piece I coated with the rose gold and blotted it a little bit dry. And then I went over it with this aged bronze and just kind of wiped at the end, and it just kind of darkened it a little. And I don't know if you can see, but for the most part, that rose gold covered all of the piece, and then the dark kind of sits down in the crevices, and then when I wiped it, most of the rose gold was still there, but it just gave it that little bit of warmth that I thought was really fun.
And you don't need to use too much, right?
Oh, not at all. In fact, I recommend just, you can see all my little dabs of color here. Just squeeze a little bit out on it at a time because it dries really fast and then it's not usable again. So just squeeze out what you think you're going to use. So then I went with this piece, and first I put this lavender. I kind of dabbed it all over the piece, and then I kind of blotted it dry with a paper towel, let it dry for a minute, and then I took, here, let me show you the lavender in this bottle. It's so pretty.
It is.
This
really
is opalite, it's called. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yes.
And then I took some of the verdigris and some of the moss. And I just squeezed the two out on my work surface side by side, and then took my brush and just kind of mixed with the brush, and I'll show you that too in a minute. Just kind of dabbed that and then let that dry. Well, all that turquoise and moss completely covered all my lavender. And so I then, after it was dry, I took a sponge, kind of a rough sponge, and then kind of sanded the surface, and then that raised or removed the color from the highlights, and I thought that just turned out beautiful.
It is. And you can see the hint of purple here and there. I really like that.
Just a little bits. What it did do, though, is it removed that darker antique. So you don't see much of that. And it's beautiful, but what I was going for, what I was hoping to accomplish, was that dark antique look underneath. So then I did this one, and that time I put a little orange under there, and then the moss green and the turquoise, and layered it and got that effect. And so then I thought, okay, now I'm ready to do it on the piece that I'm going to make. And so I'll show you how I did that. That's this bracelet here, and but I'm going to demo on this piece so you can see the effect. So first I took some orange, and like I said, you just want just a little bit because it goes pretty far.
And you say it dries fast.
It dries fast. And then I just dabbed it here and there where you don't want it perfect unless you're going to coat the whole thing. But in this case, I didn't want orange everywhere. So you can see that it's just here and there, but not everywhere. And then it's not too, I don't have pools of color, so I'm
Right.
just going to leave this. If I had pools of the patina laying here, I'd kind of blot that because
Okay.
you don't want, you know, that settling. But I'm going to let that just dry for a minute. And then I took a little of this verdigris.
It's so funny how colors, you know, they mix together, they change completely.
They
I wouldn't
do.
thought that you will use the verdigris for this. And then with the moss.
And the moss. And then I just took my brush and I wanted kind of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of mixed it here and there so it was kind of a blend, but then in some places I want a little more blue or a little more green. And I just started coating, just covering, not
Okay.
absolutely everything.
Because you still want to keep the orange.
I want to
on it,
see
right?
some of that orange.
Okay.
Of course, you can always go back and add.
Right.
And then what I found is, at first I blotted the excess with a dry towel. And I found that a damp towel was a little more forgiving. You can
Okay.
always go back and add
Right.
more if you don't think your coverage is enough. But I just blotted like that. So now you still see I've got quite a bit of orange,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want quite that much.
Right.
So I would go back and just do a little bit more. Just where do I just want to see it peeking through. And it's way easier to add more than it is to remove. A little harder to go
Mhm.
back. And then just kind of blot it here and there. And then I just kind of repeated that process until I got it just the way I liked. And then if I covered it up too much of the orange,
Right.
put a little orange on there again. It's very, very forgiving. And then it dries really
Mhm.
fast. And that's
Yes.
all I did.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That
on
was this one.
Okay, so on this one we see a little more of, is that brown that we see more? So I see you have more green in here than brown in here, right?
So I did, this is a finer filigree, so I think there's more open
I see.
space.
I see.
And I did blot quite a bit
Oh, I
and
see.
remove some of that orange. This one, maybe I
Right.
left a little more of the orange on underneath.
Okay.
So this one maybe a little less.
Right.
But yeah, so it just takes playing with.
Yes.
That's
I guess you
the
just
fun
have
part.
to try and practice,
Right, right. And then on this little piece, I coated the whole piece
Mhm.
solid with this bright, bright blue, which is just gorgeous, and let it dry.
Okay.
And then I took this lighter, soft blue and the moss and dabbed it over the top and then blotted it. And then I covered up too much of my blue. So I just picked up a little more and
Right.
dabbed and then blotted, and then I went back and did a little more of the blue and green.
Okay.
So you get it down, you know, if you do the same things over again.
Yes.
But part of the fun was just experimenting with it. And then
Yes.
they all turn out a little different. So
Very unique.
each one's a treasure.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And just have to try and
Right.
just do it.
Right, exactly.
This is such a fun project. Thank you so much for showing us
Oh,
today.
so much fun. Thank you.